I want to explain to you here how those thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are governed by some very deep subconscious processes that are at work all the time, influencing the way we respond to our environment and the way we show up in the world moment by moment. So, we like to think we are incredibly rational, switched on beings who are in control of our own destiny and can tackle challenges and problems in our lives intellectually and come up with great innovations and solutions. And we absolutely are, or at least we are some of the time, and we have the capacity to be all of the time, 99% of the time. We definitely have that capacity there. Our brains are incredible, powerful things, and we can literally create, be, or do anything we put our minds to, as long as the right parts of our brain are in charge. However, it's not always that straightforward. So you'll have noticed that a lot of the time you don't feel that creative, that in control or clear. And maybe you don't always feel that motivated, decisive, or focused on your next steps. Sometimes it feels hard, and sometimes you feel fuzzy, indecisive, low, or like hiding away from the world rather than taking it on and winning. And of course, for every great idea you have and everything you want to achieve, there's that little voice of negativity or doubt sabotaging your plans and telling you that you can't. Rather than feeling rational, focused, and in control, it can often feel like you're fighting all the fires, jumping from one problem, one stressful situation to the next, processing a million different things and never having time to breathe, let alone add more to your plate by pursuing your new ideas. The source of all that struggle, stress, and overwhelm is your fight, flight, or freeze system, which is otherwise known as your primitive brain. It's that little chicken shaped kind of loop in the middle there, that dark gray area. Think of that as your brain's warning system. It spots something stressful or potentially stressful in your environment and it goes off, it gets activated. Now, it doesn't literally raise an alarm, it's way more devious and subtle than that. Instead, it starts to influence your thoughts, feelings, and reactions. So you respond to the stressful situation in the way that that part of your brain thinks is safest for you. Not best, not optimum. It's not in any way thinking about the long game or the consequences of those reactions. It literally just works on autopilot, dealing with what's happening in your thoughts in that particular moment. Now, I say what's happening in your thoughts, and that is a really key thing to understand, not necessarily what's happening in reality. And we'll get to that in a moment or two. So, there are three main ways it influences you in the moment. It makes you feel angry, makes you feel anxious, or it makes you feel depressed and low. And the way it responds is influenced by the previous experiences and thoughts that you've had in similar situations in the past. So it uses those as a reference. Now, you might not feel angry, anxious, or depressed in any way, but as I say, it's often way more subtle than that. So let's say that you're on a call with a prospective client, and to you, that's a pretty stressful, high pressure situation. The stress and anxiety around that situation causes this primitive part of your brain to kick in and make you feel anxious. Maybe you find that you're a bit more irritable with the kids that morning. Maybe you feel on edge and flit from one thing to the next. Maybe it's harder to get motivated to get your other work done. And there we have fight, flight, or freeze. So being irritable with the kids, that's your fight response kicking in. Feeling on edge and flitting from one thing to the next, that's your flight response. Feeling harder to get motivated to get your other work done is our freeze response. So you can see how that's pretty subtle. We don't automatically feel angry, anxious, depressed. It just subtly influences our behavior and throws us off course. And you probably recognize that you're feeling less than perfectly calm and in control because your mind and body starts to tell you this is stressful. Your brain goes at a million miles an hour, reminding you of every little thing you've done wrong in similar situations in the past. And it plays out the likely worst case scenario narrative. It starts telling you it's going to go horribly wrong. The client will think I'm not capable. I'll forget what I'm supposed to say. I'll struggle to say the price. I'll talk too much. Why am I even on this call? I'm probably not what they need. I hate selling. This feels icky, and on, obsessively repeating those negative thoughts over and over and making you feel more and more anxious. And your heart starts to beat faster, your mouth goes dry, you feel like jelly, you can't focus properly, you start breathing differently, you try maybe to repeat some affirmations, but they don't really feel like they're doing very much. And this is what you're dealing with. It's not imposter syndrome, it's your anxiety response, it's your fight, flight, freeze response taking over the situation. And maybe for you, this is an extreme example of that response, or maybe it's not. It's certainly a pretty accurate illustration of how I used to feel when I had to perform or face any kind of awkward situation. But the point is that primitive part of your brain will subconsciously influence everything you're doing in your business and in your life day to day. And those negative thoughts and feelings talk you out of doing all the things you need to do to make progress and see success. Sometimes it does that through causing you to fight. So maybe getting triggered by social media, maybe getting riled by the competition, maybe getting angry with a difficult client. Sometimes through causing you to want to run away. So procrastination, changing your mind, shiny object syndrome, not posting when you know that you need to. And sometimes it causes you to freeze. So the brain fog, the lack of ideas, feeling unmotivated, and perfectionism. And the way it subconsciously influences you is by generating all sorts of negative thoughts and feelings that keep you stuck. So the feeling not good enough, the feeling you've got nothing to say, feeling you are less good than everyone else, feeling you don't have the special ingredients for success, doubting yourself, making excuses. So you can actually see that not just imposter syndrome, but all the things we think of as mindset issues that we struggle with day to day as ambitious women and entrepreneurs happen because the normal human way we respond to stressful situations kicks in and causes all of these things: the procrastination, the overwhelm, the lack of motivation, the perfectionism, the comparison, the struggles we have getting visible and selling our services, the lack of creative ideas, and all the other negative stuff we experience. And they are all just ways your brain keeps you stuck. Why does it want to keep you stuck? Because it feels safe keeping you stuck. To that part of your brain, familiar equals safe. The same every day equals safe. Lack of progress and change equals safe. Playing small equals safe. But you and I know when we step back from that influence and look at things objectively with our intellectual, highly logical, rational minds, that doing the same thing every day isn't safe. Being stuck isn't safe at all. Stuck is maybe one of the worst things you can be in this high pressure world where things change and we need to evolve, innovate, and adapt. But unfortunately, our natural defense mechanism doesn't see it that way. It kind of never got the memo. So we need to break out of stuck and understand how we can put that inner imposter to bed to calm down that stress response so we can move forward comfortably, confidently, and stride fearlessly towards a better future, rewriting all those old programs and patterns and behaviors of the past. Now, I just want to show you how that anxiety and stress can become such a vicious cycle. So the anxiety response, the stress response gets triggered by all the day-to-day stuff that stresses us out slightly. You know, those little things, burning the toast, kids doing something stupid, a sad story on the news, a snarky remark, a competitor posting something brilliant, even just the act of thinking and problem solving, i.e., working, is in a way stressful, and it triggers that part of our brain. So basically, this part of our brain is only meant to be triggered 1 to 2% of the time, if that. And what's actually happening is it's getting this drip, drip, drip all the time of stress trickling in, of, if you like, warnings about the world around us. The more that anxiety builds, the more that part of our brain takes over. And the more it takes over, the more it affects our thinking in a negative way. The more that we find to feel anxious about. It's like our filter drops in, and all of a sudden we start to see the world in a more negative, more anxiety-inducing way. And the more negatively we think, the more we find to feel anxious about. So the brain starts to perceive more threat in our environment, both real and imagined. So you can see how that creates a vicious cycle. As we perceive more threat, there are more stress triggers. So we don't just experience one of those problems or worries, we experience lots of them happening all at the same time, which fuel our anxiety further. And the more that anxiety spirals, the less we're able to tune into that brilliant part of our brain that can think and respond logically and knows the right answer. The less we're able to feel confident about our decisions, the less we're able to make good decisions, be creative and insightful, and the less we're able to see what's really good for ourselves and our businesses. We are more influenced by bad habits and behaviors that don't serve us, like checking Facebook 40,000 times a day and scoffing all the biscuits in the house. We're more unkind to ourselves too. And of course, all that extra negativity just adds to the mix. So we're going to start undoing that process now by identifying where that inner imposter narrative creeps into your everyday life. So I'd love you to just take a look now at the exercise that goes along with this video, and let's get started.